So in true Shanté fashion, she threw her on the table at the end of that performance and was like, I had to remind y'all of who I am.
Oh my goodness. Let me just go ahead. Okay. So this is a I went a little different.
Yeah.
So when I was thinking about diss records, they encompass so many things. And so let me just say, okay, so my number 3 is Buddy X by Nina Cherry.
Hmm.
And what I found so fascinating about this is it's not an obvious diss record, right? It could be just like a woman scorned record. It could be conceived as I'm just, looking out for my girl record. But,
Mm-hmm.
Nina Cherry in this song is talking about Lenny Kravitz, like very directly. So
Mm-hmm.
there was no ambiguity on Lenny's part who she was talking about, because this is apparently an alias that he used to use. And this was of course in support of her friend Lisa Bonet, who was married to Lenny Kravitz at the time. And so she wrote this whole diss record to Lenny. I am going to, for all of these, we're going to put a link in the chat. I specifically went ahead and chose the remix that has Biggie on it.
Yes, I love that the Desert Eagle remix.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
when you click that link, it'll also be in the description for those of you who are not listening live. The one that you can hear is the Biggie remix joint. But yes, Buddy X, Nina Cherry is my number 3. Sir Daniel, your number 3.
So J. Ray went a non-traditional route, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. I like to keep it real gutter and gully when it comes to disc records. And to me, my humble opinion, the king of Sugar Honey on the Rocks, which celebrates black women in music, my DJ series, Sugar Honey on the Rocks. I live for female MCs. I love them. They to me, a lot of the most vicious diss records or vicious rap records have come from women, especially when
Mm-hmm.
they were answering back dudes.
Yes.
Now, there came a time when, in order for a group to achieve status, you had to go after somebody who apparently was at the top of the pyramid chain.
Mm-hmm.
And JJ Fad, the underrated queens of the West Coast, queen, hip hop and pop records back in the day. JJ Fad is known for their pop records, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, when you flip that record over or that cassette to their hip hop side, those girls, those women, like they would eat the girls up. So my number 3 record is a record they called Now Really.
Mm-hmm.
Now Really, to me, disc records there's the pacing of the record. It's not too fast. It's very cafeteria. We're banging our fists on the on the table, making the beat. It's very concise. It's very specific. They're talking about the group Too Bad, who formed after they left JJ Fad. Some old members of JJ Fad broke off and created their own group called Too Bad. There was another rap group on the West Coast called Sugar and Spice. So those were the targets for this particular record. And JJ Fad was um, reared and brought up by NWA,
Mm-hmm.
and so they had Ice Cube, they had MC Ren backing them.
Mm-hmm.
So the pen game was mean,
Right.
and so but the delivery. I don't know what kind of microphones Dr. Dre was using first, and Dr. Dre produced it, so it's everything. So I don't know what kind of microphones Dr. Dre was using on them, but they sounded so crisp and so concise. There was no confusing what they were saying. And it just, everything about that record is everything to me. So it's called Now Really. It's featured on the Supersonic, the album, their debut album that came out in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
and it's just all three of them take their time, take a turn going at somebody that opposes their crew, and that's how you defend your crew, you
Absolutely.
know. And that's how, if somebody tries to bring it to you on wax, you bring it to them just like that. And I think Now Really was a perfect example of how a diss record should be made.
I feel like this. So my number two
Mm-hmm.
is Canibus's second round knockout.
Okay.
Yeah, like so I did fall, I ended up going traditional with this. Actually my
Mm-hmm.
I think my top two are pretty traditional. But
Okay.
what I love about this record, I feel like a really good diss record has to do two things. It has to really do three things. The beat has to slap, or it has to have like the whole production element to me has to be a thing. You can have the craziest diss in the world, but if it's over some whack production, I gotta I gotta work at it. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
gotta stick with you. Second round knockout checks this box, right? It's really, the production is clean. The second thing is the MC has to be skilled, right? So the MC themselves has to understand what their strengths are and has to have also spent some time kind of studying the subject that they are about to diss. So check. Canibus did that. And then number three, their target the target has to make sense, right? So the person that they are really targeting has to be someone is like almost equally matched. I think disses are whack when you have like a really dope MC like dissing like a whack MC. I'm like, I know who's gonna win this battle, so it doesn't make sense. The Canibus second round knockout is dope and fascinating to me because in all intents and purposes, Canibus is the underdog, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And if you look at history will probably say that LL won this battle, but really Cannabis LL probably won the race, but Canibus won this round. Like it was very, very clear. So what was interesting to me about second round knockout is it kind of came. So Canibus was on 4321 with a bunch of other people. It was like
Remix, yeah.
the remix, everybody was on it.
DMX,
DMX, it was a
Redman,
crazy remix.
Meth. Yes. Dope record.
So apparently in the original version, Canibus did, because LL has the microphone on the arm thing, and Canibus was like, let me get that mic off your arm, and was really kind of like bigging
Poking the
L.
bear.
Yeah, poking the bear, but I also think he was bigging him up a little bit. Like it was like, yo, this is like, this is the big dog. Let me, I'm here too. This is the homie, right? This is LL that I'm here with, right? LL did not take that kindly and had him change it. LL did not take it kindly. Had him change the verse, but LL had written a verse in response. So on one song, there is a diss to a person who's on the song.
On the same record.
On the same record, right? So this is Canibus's response, right, to that diss, which was on a song that Canibus is actually on too. So that was fun. That also made this super fun as a response record. So this song still holds up. I listened to it in preparation for our conversation, and I'm like, yep, this is good. This is good. It still holds up. It has Mike Tyson in the music video training Canibus. It's crazy. So, yes, my number two is Second Round Knockout by Canibus, and we put the link in the chat. And you're right, Keys. Yeah, he ate him up. Like he ate him up.
Ate him up, yeah. And what I remember fondly about this record is it got people excited about hip hop.
It
I
did.
remember they were doing, they would stop what they were doing on the air to play the new Canibus record because they were like, oh, Canibus dropped a diss against LL, and so it became this ongoing thing because it felt like every week somebody was dropping a response. And to people that felt like old times, it was like, this is hip hop.
Yep.
And so your pick and my second pick kind of go hand in hand because except for the original record, So my pick is "Shut the F Up, Ho"
Mm-hmm.
by MC Lyte,
Mm-hmm.
which actually was on the B side. It was a B side on the Light as a Rock 12-inch, because there had been this now ongoing feud between MC Lyte and the gangsteress Antoinette,
Mm-hmm.
and they had been sparring on records, taking jabs at each other on records. MC Lyte kind of came at her first. If she responded to what she thought was a diss, and so on her album she had 10% diss,
Which
and
is,
so
oof,
which is
love it.
which is dope in and of itself. But "Shut the F Up" took it to another level. First of all, it opened up with a sample of Millie Jackson.
Right.
So about I've been, and you kind of, it sets the tone for the record. She says, "I've been too nice for too long. Yup, it's definitely time I start feeling bitchy." And then this nasty ass funky bass line just comes in. It's real smooth, it's slow, and it has it's they're cutting up "Hot Damn Ho,"
Oh,
"Shut the Fuck Up,"
mm-hmm.
the whole record. And so MC Lyte, like Canibus, categorically takes Antoinette apart,
Yes.
categorically takes Herbie Lovebug got it, the
Mm-hmm.
for saying, for quote unquote setting her up for failure. Um and just the I don't think on wax we heard that much, like, it felt visceral.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like, I remember when I was listening to it, I felt like, oh, this is ugly. Like, oh, like Lyte is really going in on this woman who was the underdog and who was holding her own, but MC Lyte was like, nah, I'm gonna show you why I'm who I am. And I think the best part of the record, which is really the to me the taunting part of the record, is at the very end. Is you can hear audio
Yes.
two saying,
Yeah.
"Yo, learn it." What is it? Knowing is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And they called her slime, and then they're all laughing,
Laughing. Gangsters
laughing
don't
in the
make me laugh.
background. Don't make me laugh, and it's like it's almost like they had no respect for her talent. The record told me that they had no respect for her. Like, we're completely ending your career. I felt like, ooh, this is not going to end well for Antoinette's career. And it kind of did that to her career, along with other things. But it was definitely a show of MC Light really threw her on the table with that one.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but was vicious with it. Had the nice delivery. The beat was dope. So that's why "Shut the F Up" is my number two, all time diss record.
Yeah, I mean, you are absolutely right. That joint right there. I remember when I first heard it, like you having that moment of, I don't know if I stopped the tape. I
Mm-hmm.
might have stopped the tape because I knew, as an Antoinette fan,
Yeah.
listening to it sounded so like,
Yeah,
ooh,
the whole time you're
girl.
making this face like, oh,
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 girl.
she got you. She kind of ate you up. Oh man, what are we gonna do now? Yeah,
Yeah. So my number one, Lost Ones by
interesting.
Lauryn Hill. Definitely. So I guess I didn't go traditional with this. And it's funny, this wasn't, I had a different, like, I have stuff written down on this piece of paper to
Mm-hmm.
try to figure out what it was going to be. I ended up going with Lost Ones
Mm.
because Lost Ones checks all my boxes, and it does an additional thing. It is kind of universally accept, it's like a universally dope song where
Yes.
you could just not look at this as a diss record and it's going to be fine, but it is a diss record. Right? And that's, it's just subliminal. It's beautiful and it's kind of subliminal approach to having this conversation between Lauryn and Wyclef. It's technically, I guess, the first single for the record, but not really. It's more like a teaser single because Doo Wop is really the first single. But it was very clear that Lauryn had something to say before she delivered this record, and Lost Ones was that. And it opens with, it's funny how money changed the situation, and it just goes from there. And it is the most elegant diss record, well written. Lauryn is a vicious MC, so it's like, oh, she dissing, but like this rhyme is crazy. Like,
And we could all sing along with it.
we can all
It was easy to learn.
very much so. And just even thinking about her singing on the end of the record, you might win some, but you really, it's like a nursery rhyme, but
And
you
it's
really,
taunting.
and it's
It's
taunting
taunting the
him.
person, yeah. Again.
And then and if even if we just took that at face value, like that in itself is heavy. But then on top of it, you deliver one of the greatest records of all time. It opens as the first song on one of the greatest records across the board of all time. You don't get, it's like, oh, you living up to this, Miss Hill.
Absolutely.
So, Lost Ones, Lauryn Hill is my number one diss record.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because you and author extraordinaire Danielle Smith share that opinion about like Lost Ones being like the perfect diss record. And so, and for all the same points, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then yeah, it set up the whole album. Well done. Now, the difference, again, I'm going more traditional with my number one. Like you said, Lost Ones was more subliminal. But so y'all know how I feel. Again, I am their expert on female MC rap history, and we've mentioned Roxanne Shanté ad nauseum, and I think there is no greater in female rap history. There is no greater diss record than Big Mama, and the reason why I say that is because of how it got formed organically,
Mhm.
because you could see it in real time happening. If if you were around, there was a pay-per-view. Kids, there was a thing called pay-per-view back in the day, where if there was a special event that was being televised but it wasn't being broadcast on regular cable or
Right.
television outlets, the promoters would put it up on pay-per-view so
Mhm.
that you could pay and watch it in from your home, right? So there was this event called Sisters in the Name of Rap.
I'll never forget it.
And so this was 91.
Mhm.
Yes, 91, that Sisters in the Name of Rap had come along. So at this point, Roxanne Shante has kind of she came out in 84.
Mhm.
She dropped the album in 89. So you
Mhm.
got that span of time where she was kind of in and out of the game, not really producing a product so that people could take it home and get to know Roxanne Shante. So she kind of people remember her, but they kind of don't. And of course, you have this new crop, this wave of female MCs that has come out. So by the time Sisters in the Name of Rap has come along, Shante is like doing a has pops up on a single here and there, but there's no album so to speak of.
Mhm.
So she is kind of like a special guest on this lineup
Mhm.
because they say she's the queen, the original MC, queen of MCs, blah blah
Mhm.
blah. So to what she said to her report, Roxanne Shante, I should say, Shante said that backstage, what she witnessed was a lot of the new kids, the new girls coming in the door, and a lot of them, she had this kind of undeserved ego that she was kind of like, what is going on here? She heard a lot of people arguing over who had the better dressing room, who felt like they should be on what part of the bill just based on how hot their records were. So she was just, and she said, I was just sitting back and looking at it like, none of y'all would be here if it weren't for me. Like she had that moment of, I was 14 years old, like going out on the road, living in a halfway house, being away from my family, um, getting robbed, getting duped by show producers who didn't want to pay her, not getting a cent off the record, all this other stuff. And y'all have the nerve to argue, to be beefing over dressing rooms and your name on the marquee and where you are on the lineup. And she was like, okay, I got something for y'all. She wanted to, so from that night, oh, and even on stage, while she was at the end of her performance, and this video is online for those of you who are curious to see it, she performs a song called Dance to This that features Biz Markie on the beatbox. She's on stage with Granddaddy IU. She's rocking the crowd, and the song is coming to the end. And the very last thing she says before she leaves the stage, she said, oh, and I just want to say one thing. Ain't no bitch in this house can fuck with this. The crowd loses it and she walks off stage. And you can kind of see people were like, wait a minute, what did she just say? You can see MC Lyte visibly like, what just happened? Because this is supposed to be sisters in the
Right.
name of rap. So in true Shanté fashion, she threw her on the table at the end of that performance and was like, I had to remind y'all of who I am. And within maybe a few months later, I was sitting in my room listening to Rhythm and Vibes of the Georgia State radio station, and they played hip hop on Sunday nights. And Randall Moore and Talib said, well, we got this new record. And I don't know, guys. This is different. It's from Roxanne Shanté. Yes, that Roxanne Shanté. And it's called Big Mama. And this is the original. This is the Large Professor version. What's on the album is a completely different version. The Large Professor version is like super gritty and super street. And this record comes in. I will never forget the shock and awe I had on my face listening to this record, because it starts off and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then she said, she says that, the hook on the song is, I gave birth to all of these MCs, to all of them MCs. And they're like, okay, yeah, yes, you did, Shiny. That's cool. It gets to the second verse and she says, matter of fact, I'm gonna start calling off names.
I remember.
At this point, nobody is saying names anymore. If you're dissing, you're being subliminal because you don't want no real beef. Shanté's like, no, I'm gonna start calling off names. And the very first person she goes after is a bona fide superstar at this point, but she does not care. She says, I am coming after you first. First up is Latifah.
She did. First up is Latifah.
You roll up and I'm going to smoke that ass like Reefa. I was like, wait a minute.
I remember hearing that like.
Because at this point, you're like, nobody would go. Who? Latifah is a superstar. She's Khadijah.
Right.
Was she Khadijah at this point?
She was it was pre, she was about to be Khadijah. This is like 92. This is pre Khadijah, but she's on the way to be Khadijah.
So it's like she's well respected.
Yes.
Everybody knows she's a dope lyricist. Nobody's gonna say anything about Latifah. And she goes in on Latifah. She goes in on Moni Love. And then who was on it? I think those were the first two. And then somebody else that I absolutely did not expect her to say was MC Lyte. Another MC that I just figured she wasn't going to touch Lyte because I thought they might have actually been cool as well. She goes after Lyte. She refers to her sexuality, which was never, nobody had ever dared to question MC Lyte's sexuality at that time. She straight up called her well,
She
we're
used
not
the
going to use it.
derogatory term.
Use the derogatory term for a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
She went after Salt and Pepper.
Yo yo.
Anybody,
The
yo
yo
was
yo.
heartbreaking.
It
That
was.
was
It
heartbreaking.
was. I will never forget what she said. I'm gonna let y'all go listen to the joint.
You
But I
gotta
still
hear it.
remember that nod. Take your ass down the. I'm gonna just leave it be.
Oh my god! And it was just like the whole record. I'm sitting. I literally had my hand over my mouth, like I can't believe this is happening. If we had YouTube reaction videos back then, I would have done a YouTube reaction video. And it was just one of those things you have to go and listen to, and you probably may not have an appreciation for it, but at this point, like I said, everybody is playing politics. Everybody is being babied by their labels. Um, this, battling is not really a thing now. People can dance and rap and do their thing and earn lots of money. But Shanté at that time wanted to remind the kids of the essence of hip hop and what she was best known for, which was battling and out rapping everybody else, and just reminding people. It was a cry. It was a cry for help. When I look back on it, it
Mm-hmm.
was a cry for help because she felt left out of the
Right.
conversation. She felt like the industry had completely used her up and
Mm-hmm.
threw her to the side. So what do you do when you feel like you've been used up and thrown to the side? You lash out at
You
people.
lash out, and
You
you ain't
lash
got nothing to lose. You know what
You
I'm
don't have
saying?
nothing to lose, because at this point, I really feel she has said this on record that she was done with hip hop. She was done with the industry. She didn't want anything to do with it. But she said, you know what? I'm going to put out this one last record and just put my whole foot in it. And I'm calling out names. You all are going to remember me. And that is why Big Mama is my number one diss record, because just the shock and awe of it all. Chef's Kiss. It's just like one of the heftier diss records of the early stages of hip hop, in my opinion.
No, you know what? I absolutely agree, point blank, period, with you.